Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this is our second IM for the fall semester. Normally we have two or three during each semester, but this is something that we began a number of years ago. And it's taken from the idea came from this quote by Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. I am convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other. And they don't communicate with each other because they are separated from each other. And so our goal of creating the I Am Speaker series was to bring people together, faculty, staff, community members, to come together to share their stories and their journeys. Because we believe that when we learn about one another, when we have that open communication and dialogue with one another, the world becomes a much better place. So, with that in mind, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Teresa McKenzie and let her say a few words and then introduce our guest for today. Dr. McKenzie?
Hi, Dr. McKenzie here. It's my honor to introduce Hunter Dane Schafer. Hunter is a VA work study student. He works directly with me. He is also a veteran. He's Army, but I look over that I'm Air Force. But he is from day one. He is such a totally different person from the day one that I met him. He is a great worker. He is so ambitious, and he's also a Bachelor of Social Work major. And he's excited right now. He's doing a practicum in Paintsville or Pikeville, but he'll explain more about that. But I'd like for everybody to meet Hunter Dane Schafer. He is an OU student. Take it away.
First, Barb, I love your hair. I love it. um, hi, my name's Hunter. I'm going to OU Southern, and I am a social work major. I guess the best part about it is to kind of start my life's journey and how I got to this point. I was born in West Virginia. I was raised in Louisiana, Kentucky. Biological parents divorced when I was 3. Whenever I was growing up, my father would only see me for about 1 or 2 hours. And as a child, I thought that was normal. I thought that was co-parenting because my mom would never say a bad word about my dad, but my dad would always poke and prod things about my mother, and I didn't understand it at the time until later on in life, which I think that's kind of any kid. It wasn't until my stepmother came around that I was allowed to stay at my father's every weekend, sometimes more, just depending on the times. He lived in Ashland and my mother lived in Louisa. And it was 2 vastly different households with my stepfather and my biological mother. Growing up in her household, it was a very, I don't know if Bible beating is the right word. It was a very religious and very strict, almost to the point of toxicity. It was very toxic. And that's in no disregard to how my mother raised me. She was wonderful and I love her, but it was very toxic, how it came about. My father's was vastly different. I would actually see my dad talk to people that weren't there because he was high on pain medication. He was a coal barge captain who was hurt. He sued, I believe it was Marathon, and he won a vast sum of money, $1.5 million. That changed his life, and he squandered it until he ran it dry through, he abused pain medications and other medications. Same with my stepmother. They were addicts through and through, and I didn't understand it. So I seen a lot of abuse. I seen a lot of people talk about men abusing women. I seen a lot of women abusing men in that household. A lot of it for drugs. And it created a phobia in me to not take pills, which is actually why I do not take medication for bipolar disorder, but we'll get to that later on. Through my teenage years, I wasn't allowed to really do self-discovery in my teenage years. It was go to church, go to school, and it got so strict that I didn't want to leave the house. I actually just kind of stayed shut in my room, was kind of a hermit. And during that time, a lot of things happened, a lot of drastic changes. My father would change his number and not contact me. So I just didn't go over there sometimes. That was right when he started to lose the money that he had, where he wasted it. And at that point, I was probably in my sophomore year when it began, and it got worse. At one point, I saw my mother, or my stepmother, I should say, chase my father around his house with a knife as a 15-year-old boy, and she attempted to kill him because he cheated on her for drugs. She had, and after this point, I watched her have several mini strokes throughout my teenage years. That's not really, it's something that you see strokes and things like that on TV, and you see that stuff on TV. And when you see it on person, it's very different watching your parent go through that. And through the entire time of this, I thought it was normal. I thought everybody kind of lived this crazy life. And I had siblings, I had step siblings, half siblings, and they all just acted like it was normal. And I think they had their own traumas that we really don't talk about. That's sad enough. We don't really talk about the things we did. We always joke about it and say we could probably write a book about our lives, but we don't really talk about stuff that happened. My father and my stepmother were very verbally abusive to each other. Always playing horrible money with playing horrible games with money. She would rack up credit card debt to get back at him and be spiteful, and he would go out and do drugs and cheat on her, and then she would do drugs again. All the while, I watched one of my siblings, my second oldest brother, he was an intravenous heroin user up until the day he died, and I would watch him after. It would be nothing for him to leave jail, go to a rehab facility. He went to everyone under the sun you can imagine, and he would leave and he would come back to the same old friends, and he would do heroin right there in the house in front of everybody, and it didn't matter. He was kicked out many, many times, but my stepmom always wanted him back, so that was that. My dad wouldn't argue. He would just go to work, come home, take a pill, generally morphine tabs, and sleep. Many times as a kid, I would pick up the cigarettes off the couch to stop them from burning. But again, that was that household, and I thought that it was normal, and I thought it was fun, and everything was great because that was my dad. My mom, during this time, my mother again was very religious. She would never say a bad word about my dad. She would let me go there. I don't think she wanted to believe how bad it was, and I really didn't talk about it because, again, I tried to divide. I don't know if this makes sense. I tried to divide those households. That was my dad's. This was my mom's. They were two different people, two different worlds. At my mom's, I was an only child. At my dad's, I was the youngest of, 4 brothers and like 2 or 3 sisters that some of them I've never even met, sadly. But about this time, my stepfather, who was much older than my mother, by 30 years, actually, he was getting older, and he was born in 1940. So he came from a different generation. And that different generational gap, he did not like. He didn't, I guess I was more, I don't know how to say it. I don't know. I think you all would understand what I'm trying to say is that there's a different generational gap, and every generation seems to hate the younger generation for other reasons that I can't explain. And he would always preach the Bible at me, throw a Bible verse, things I did was evil, yada, yada. And I really didn't do anything. I just had long hair at one point. I had hair done on my chest, and that was apparently evil. Because in the 1940s, men did not have long hair unless you were a hippie, and being a hippie was evil. Um, my mother at a young age also, even though it was very religious, it was also very hypocritical. Um, she would leave. I was 10 years old when she started going out to, they were a part of the Moose Club and they went to Sturgis every year. I was 10 years old. I'd get off the bus and I would cook and clean for myself and fend for myself, do my homework. And she said I was responsible enough. And I like to toot my own horn. I guess I was. I was a shy hermit kind of kid. I didn't really do anything. I had my grandparents and my other family members all down the holler. So I just kind of stayed in my own house. And my mom would go out and she would go on motorcycle rides and do her thing. And she partied a lot. And church on Sunday. um, and again, this is no way bashing my family. This is just, you don't get to choose who you're raised in. And they have their own walks of life and they have their own mental illnesses, as undiagnosed as they may be. And that's who I got stuck with. And I wouldn't change it for the world. It made me who I am. Towards the end of my junior and senior year, though, my father, I didn't hear from him for 2 months. Tried to contact him, tried to drive by the house, and doors were locked. So I just didn't really text my brothers, and they wouldn't really get. They at this point they were much older than I was, and they were living in their own houses, had their own families, and they said, "I don't know what's going on with them, and I haven't heard from them." Until one day I get a random phone call, and it's from my dad, and I said, can I come see you?" And he said, "Oh, I left. I'm in South Carolina." And he just up and left. And he said, he'll see me when he sees me. And he loves me and he'll miss me. And I actually believed it. And I hope he did. I don't know. I never really got to ask him. We didn't really talk much until the day died. I tried to take care of him towards the end, but we can get back to that later. Don't want to jump too far ahead. After he left, it hurt my feelings as a young man, because he was never really around. He was more or less, here's money, kind of get out of my face, buy your love, kind of lifestyle. Well, at this point, my stepfather, who was much older than my mother, got very, very hateful, for lack of a better word. He was starting to feel his age, and my mother was younger, he was older, and I think, and I will say this all day, men have very, very fragile egos. And a woman can break that ego very quickly. And he would accuse her of cheating on her, and up to the point that he would get in screaming matches with her, and she never did, until one day she got tired of it and said, "You know what, if you're going to accuse me of cheating and you're just going to scream at me every day and treat me and call me these horrible names, I'm just going to do it and prove you right." Does it make sense? No, but more than often than not that it happens. She had an affair, and I witnessed about 6 to 8 months through my entire senior year. It was just one big long backstabbing match and arguments about the affair and everything else. And they tried to work it out, and she was hiding stuff from him, and he was going out and chasing her. And my senior year was just kind of ruined. And so I kind of had enough. And I kind of just walked in one day. I said, I want to leave here and I don't know how to leave. And I was walking around Ashland and Greenup Avenue, and sure as enough, a U.S. Army guy said, "Do you want an adventure, man? You look like you need an adventure." And I said, "Yeah, I kind of want to get out of here." And he said, "Have you ever thought about the Army?" And I said, "No, I've never thought about it. I just kind of played video games my whole life. I've worked on a farm. I've never thought about the military." And he said, "Well, I've got the job for you. It's like Call of Duty." And I'm not kidding. That's how they get you. And of course, he said, "You're going to be an infantryman and you're going to do all the coolest things and go on the biggest adventures." And it was really cool. It was an adventure. And I looked at my mom. I said, "Hey, I'm going to MEPS tomorrow and I'm going to go sign up for the Army." I went to MEPS. I made a 70 on my ASVAB. And then they said, "Hey," because all these guys around me that were swearing in, they said, "Hey, you're going to leave in 6 months. You're going to leave in 3 months. You're going to leave in 8 months. Well, they looked at me and said, "Hey, man, you leave in 10 days. And I I kind of was like taken aback by that. I was like, I don't have time to prepare for anything. But again, call it the universe, call it God, whatever you want to believe in. I think I was meant to leave that quickly, just so nothing else kind of got in the way of that. And I told my mom, I said, I'm leaving, I'm gone. And she kind of broke down. She kind of got very hateful about it. But there's nothing she could do. I signed up. I wasn't going to back down from it. And when I was 18, I graduated from Lawrence County High School. I left for the Army. I was stationed in Fort Benning for my basic training. And then after that, I came home for, I want to say it was about 8 days before I left for Germany. I was in Germany for 3 years. I got to travel to different places. I went to Italy. I went to Prague in the Czech Republic. Now, yeah, Czech Republic now. It's not Czechoslovakia. I've went to Paris. I have went to England. I've went to Belfast, Ireland. And I did all those things before I was 22 when I got out. And I wouldn't change it for the world. It really showed me the different cultures, and that I'm a big American person, a big America guy, love America. But we could probably take a few notes from other countries and how they do things to be a better country. If we're supposed to be this nation that is a culmination of the primordial soup of other nations, we could take some notes from them and be better than what we are now. I'm a firm believer in that. I've seen the way that Germany is ran, Paris is ran, or everywhere. France is beautiful. Germany is beautiful. They have very clean air. Amsterdam, everything. They're a wonderful country. Everyone speaks English for the most part, so it's very easy to travel and get around. And I think that was my big thing is politically, you're kind of ingrained that America is supposed to be this perfect, great, wonderful place for everyone, and it's not this perfect, great, wonderful place for everyone. And I know that. Other people have different advantages, and it becomes apparent when you leave this country and you see things that aren't right from the outside looking in. Because when you go in the military, everyone's the same. We're all equal. You have the same equal opportunities. You start out at the lowest rank, unless you're an officer, of course, and then we'll get into that. I don't want to get into that, but if you're enlisted, you start out as an E1, and you have the same potential as to get to that E9 as that E9 did. If you work hard, you learn your job, you keep your head down, volunteer when you're asked, come in first, leave last, you will be noticed. And it is political, but you will be noticed. Work hard. Hard work is very rewarded in the military. Despite it being a political game like everything else is, there are people that notice you and they value a good service member. And I think that's one thing I took away from it. Definitely. I wanted to stay in for life, but being in the infantry, my knees and my back couldn't take it anymore. After 3 years, which I know guys that have been there for 10, 15 years. I started having horrible knee pain. I could feel grinding in my knees and my back would just lock up randomly. And I went to a doctor one day and they said, you have a lot of bulging disc and you have one herniated disc. There is no way that you can stay. You are not deployable. And if you are not deployable, you can't be in the military. And this was during the time of the troop size down in 2014. I believe that's when it started. And so they said you can stay in and get a medical board, which is, Teresa would be able to explain this a little better than I can. It is a board of medical professionals that can determine your disability rating and your need of care before you exit the military, because when you exit the military and you are disabled, they must make sure that you are as stable as you possibly can be. And this can take 1 to 2 years. And I already had less than 6 months on my contract, and I didn't want to stay 1 or 2 years just doing nothing. I wanted to, do my job as an infantryman, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I just waited till my contract ended, and I did the legwork myself to get that disability, which I think it helped and it hurt in the long run. I could have definitely probably used that money the year long that I was waiting for that disability, but I didn't want to stay in the military a year or two because I think that would be more detrimental to my mental health. Because seeing everybody work hard and do their jobs while you can't, it's a very helpless feeling, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to be that person. After the military, I came home, and I stayed with my mother for a long while. When I first got back, the transition was different, to say the least. I said I was never going to cut my hair. I was never going to shave again. I've kept up with the shaving. I haven't shaved in 5 years. I trimmed this. That's about it. Bald, but I went bald, so I have to actually shave that. I don't know when it started with my mental health. I didn't know what was wrong with me at first. I didn't know when it started. I just noticed that I would go to a bar and all of a sudden there was an $800 bar tab. I bought a H3 Hummer, and then in 2 weeks I saw an H2 Hummer, and I was obsessed with it to the point that I thought I was in physical pain because I didn't buy it. And then I did buy it, and I felt better, and I had 2 Hummers. And then I was hit with instant regret because I had 2 Hummers. And I would randomly start crying, and I would sleep for days. And then there was times I wouldn't sleep for like 4 or 5 days. And those were the times where I felt the best. So I would chase that. I would chase it with anything. It would be partying all night long, all day long, until I used up all the money that I earned and I worked hard to save in the military, partying, buying things I didn't need, going out, doing things I probably won't say here, but I have many, many regrets and things that I did that I have committed many sins that I regret, and I personally don't like to talk about them, and that's just me. I've talked about them in a therapy room, but if you know anyone that's bipolar, especially one that's type 1 and the most severe, I'm sure they've committed a lot of things, done a lot of things that they regret deeply. And it took about 3 or 4 years of therapy to really see what I did and know that it was wrong. After it took a while, I would say about a year in, because I'd already been rated for my back and my knees and my tinnitus. Because when you hear gunshots and explosions, you have your ears start ringing forever. They don't stop. And so I had a disability rating for my ears, my knees, and my back. And about a year in, my mom told me that I was self-destructive, and for some reason I couldn't understand why I got so angry about that, but I yelled at my mother, and I don't ever yell at my mother. She's my best friend. And I was angry with her for a long time. And I was living in her house, and that was disrespectful of me. I wasn't raised that way. I went to the VA because I wasn't sleeping, and I told them the truth that I didn't want to admit it, but I was hearing things that weren't there, and it was due to the fact that I wasn't sleeping. And I don't know if anybody here has ever went without sleep for a long period of time, but it can trip psychotic episodes and you can hallucinate. The most common I've heard of is visual, but I had audio hallucinations due to it. They deemed me a danger to myself, so I was committed to the Lexington psychiatric ward in the VA for 4 days, where I started my enrollment in therapy. After I was enrolled in therapy, I kind of just, I don't know if anybody's ever been in a therapy chair, but I was very resistant at first. I thought everyone else was crazy and out to get me, and I don't have a problem, you do. And one of the things about manic episodes is especially if you don't understand you're having one and you try to keep one because it's the best feeling you'll ever have in your life and the happiest you could ever be, you don't let anyone talk. And so I would be in therapy for an hour and the therapist never talked once. I was the one talking, and I went through 50 different subjects and told them that they were a piece of crap. I use other words, an awful person, and why am I here? And then I talked about, have you seen my Hummers outside? Like, I, it's, it was a strange time. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom, which was I had no money, I had no job. I was deeply in debt because I decided to take out different credit cards. And I racked up about $15,000 in credit card debt, roughly, along with vehicle debt. And I started therapy. I actually got committed to it because one day I kind of looked in the mirror and I seen myself, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if I just had a clarifying moment. I was like, you don't look like you. You just look bad. I was nearing 300 pounds at the point. When I got out of the military, I was 180, and I was nearing 300 pounds at this point, and I did not look good. I did not know who I was. I just didn't look the same. And I realized that I had done a lot of bad, and I had hurt a lot of people, and I was very toxic, and I was the exact person I did not want to be because I felt like I was my father. And I will say this, if you have bipolar disorder or you don't, or you know someone with bipolar disorder, it's okay to be selfish, and it's okay to not work, and your full-time job can be therapy. Because it pays off in the end. And I understand a lot of people at the time that they may have other obligations, like they may have a family and children and other obligations, and they can't do what I did. I stopped everything. I just went to therapy weekly and group therapy. I was absorbed by it, and it taught me a lot of coping skills. I was put on Abilify, which is a bipolar type 1 / schizophrenic medication. And I don't know how to explain it. It allowed me, I couldn't get too happy and I couldn't get too sad. During this time, I used that stabilization to create coping skills, and I did that for a year. After that year, I said I wanted to wean myself off of medication, and I would like to try just using my coping skills to manage my bipolar disorder. And it worked. It took a long time because when you get off of medication, that is a crutch. That it's a big crutch. And it was hard. And I don't want to say that I had to become a control freak, but I had to become a control freak to control my emotions. Everything you do, for me specifically, I have to think about logically. Is my reaction normal? Is my reaction warranted? Should I be this angry over something like this? Like, would someone else be angry over this? Would they be crying over this? Am I buying this because I need it? Or am I buying this because I have an obsession right now? Or do I have a delusion, which is common in bipolar disorder? Is this fear and anxiety, is it warranted? I had to basically create a script in my head for every decision that I make. And I have to do that every day. It gets easier as time goes on. At first, it was hard because somebody would like ask me a question and I'd have to really think about what I wanted to say. And sometimes I trip up and I say kind of something dumb. It's just my personality. And because I don't really have a filter, and I try really hard to have one, and I kind of get embarrassed because I don't have one. Everybody here who works with me knows I don't have a filter, and I try really hard to keep my filter on. And that is my personality, but also with, like, if depending on my emotions, sometimes I just don't care, and I have to work really hard to think about it. Like, what setting am I in right now? I don't think that this is the right audience for this joke or this thing that I just said. I have regrets. And I've done that a time or two or five, but it does get easier with time. And I think it's a blessing and a curse being this like controlling about it, because in like which I think Robert, Teresa, and Barb have all known, and other people that I've worked with. I have had, my father, my stepmother, and my brother, who was an addict, one of them. They all died within 3 years of each other, 2.5 years. And while I was working there, and it was one of those things where to control my emotions and not have a relapse into who I used to be and like go out and party and do horrible things, I kind of had to control that, and I had to like just shut everything off and just bury myself into work and school and time. Like, just I couldn't think about things, and that's probably one of the worst things that has worked for me. I don't give myself a chance to feel. When something really bad happens, I generally shut down, because I have been known to overreact. And I don't want to overreact, because, which, if you're in the military, overreacting is not a good thing. You should not overreact while you're in the military. It can get you killed or someone else killed. So I try to shut everything down and be as logical as possible, which has, again, been a blessing in many ways, but also been a curse, because I never got a chance to really grieve for them. So that'll be random moments where I think about them and I cry. And so I never give myself a chance to grieve, because I'm terrified of becoming the person I used to be. It actually is one of my biggest fears. Just because I have heard of other people, and their struggle with bipolar disorder. And a lot of people say that bipolar brains become more bipolar brains over time, which what that means is that if you do not get a grip on that, it will only get worse. And that is why I try to stay vigilant about it. And again, it's exhausting, but also rewarding, because it allows me to think logically what I need to get done. And it can be a superpower. I have gone to school year round for many years now, many years. Only month I get off is December, and I look forward to December, but then in a week and a half, I'm texting Teresa and I'm like, can I come back to work? I'm bored. I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. Do you have opportunities? And he's probably both good and bad. I do bury myself into work. I bury myself in other things so that I can exhaust my mental capacity. Because if I'm not exhausted mentally, I get bored. And bipolar people who are bored and bored veterans don't make for good people. You will find something to do, and it's usually not the best thing for you, and it's not healthy at all. But now I'm glad to say that I am on my way to finish my bachelor's in 6 months in social work. I'm applying for advanced standing in social work come February, I believe, is when it opens up, to do my master's in a year. And thank you. And then I have just been told from some friends that UK is offering a advanced standing doctorate program, a 2-year DSW. And I had no idea until I talked to Teresa and Dr. Abraham and soon to be Dr. Scheidel about the doctorate program and how long it takes. And it is long, very, very long and hard. And they said they would jump on the opportunity to do theirs in 2 years. And they said I should do the same. And I have been trying to talk to UK, which they said to talk to them closer once I'm in my master's program. And I would love to know more about it. Just because I think that even though that social work is you only need a master's of social work, it is a very terminal degree. getting a doctorate will not increase like a paycheck or anything. It's mostly for if you want to teach it or if you really want to specialize in that one specific thing. But I think that working as hard as a lot of people do, especially in academia, as I'm sure all of you can appreciate, working to get where you are, I think that you can understand that you would want that doctorate in your name. You want that doctor in your name because of how hard and the time that you put and effort into your education. It is a full-time job, and you want to absorb as much as you can to be as good a person as you can, because I think being a well-educated individual gives you the opportunity to help others who are not so well-educated. And I think that you worked hard to gain that professionalism for having like Dr. McKenzie. You know, there's people that will say like, oh, this is Teresa McKenzie. But now it's Dr. McKenzie, and the instant respect you feel and you know that you earned that. I want that for myself because I worked very hard year round to get to where I am today. And it's not a, oh, hey, I'm Dr. Schafer. I just want to know that I want to see that doctor on my name, knowing that I worked hard to earn that title. And I think that's my biggest thing. But that's me. Anybody have any questions? I would love to have questions. Oh, Barb have a question? Yes.
Yeah, I do have a question, Hunter. First of all, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
And I was just wondering, when you said you made the decision to go totally off your meds, did your therapist and your doctors, did they try to discourage you, or did they give you like a path forward?
They discouraged me because, again, I was diagnosed with bipolar type 1, which is the most severe version of bipolar disorder. And it is not recommended. Maybe type 2 or unspecified. It could be more recommended just because it's a less severe version.
Yeah.
But they discouraged me. But my group therapist, the one who led my group therapy, he is bipolar type 1, and he went off medication. And his thing was journaling. Every day he would journal. He said he did it, and they talked to me about it, and they weaned me off of it. And it was rough coming off of Abilify. Even weaning yourself off from, I want to say 25 milligrams was as high as I got. I want to say was as high as I got, I think, and down to 5, and then nothing. It was different.
Yeah.
Because you start to feel things you haven't felt in a long time.
Yeah.
And I still have bad days. Because like I'm very blessed. Despite being who I am, I have a wife, a newborn son, and a daughter. And they deal with me and my mood swings randomly at times. And I apologize for them because, and there are times, I think Abby is actually on here right now, listening to me. Hi, honey. She's in there playing with the children. There have been times that Abby's like, why are you so angry right now? And I have to think about it like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm angry. And I just have to shut down because I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm angry, and I'm just pissed off. And I don't know why. It'll just be the most random thing that'll offset me. And I don't mean to be that person. And she knows that. And she's looked at me and said, I know this isn't you. And there's been random times I've been on the couch and I start bawling my eyes out. And she's like, why are you crying? I'm like, I don't know. And it happens. And at first I was very embarrassed by it because the stigma with men don't cry. And I would randomly bawl my eyes out. And I'm like, I have no idea why I'm crying right now. But yes, and getting into this field, I think that if Dr. Abraham or Joy was here right now, they'd probably agree. And but Teresa has also dealt with individuals with mental illness many a time. That medication has its place, and it is very wonderful, and it can help a lot of people. But if you feel that medication is not helping you, and you know I call it the devil you know. If you know yourself and you feel as though you can achieve a great quality of life without it, but you need therapy and to talk to someone, then I want to be the social worker that says, if you don't want medication, I'm not going to give you medication. I'll recommend it to you, but there are ways to be a functioning member of society while also being diagnosed with a mental illness. There are some people that need it, and it does not make them any less of an individual. But you are not required to take those medications because they do have horrible side effects that can be debilitating, but you are not required to take those. Anybody else?
Well, I was kind of going to ask, you touched on it, Ms. Lori,
Oh, hey.
like what a bad day looks like now or how often they occur, or, you kind of just mentioned some there, but that's kind of what I was curious about.
Bad days now. My wife would know more so, but I have been known to like just be very quiet all day. And it is because I'm wrapped in my own mind. And I've told her, like, she's been really upset and I can't talk to her about it because, and she's even asked me, we've been driving down the road and she's like, why aren't you, like, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking to me? And I'm like, and I told her I don't have the words. I'm just having a very bipolar day and I don't want to talk to you or anyone right now. And it's not because I love you any less. I love you and I want to spend the day with you, but I'm trying really hard not to be mean to you because you don't deserve it. I don't want to be mean to you. And I think that says a lot, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn again. You have to have a partner who you can say, I just don't want to be mean to you because it's not your fault. And I don't know why I'm thinking these thoughts and I'm very sorry. And it's nothing against you. You've done nothing wrong. And you need to assure them that they've done nothing wrong. It's all in your head. And I am so sorry. That's a big step because I've known people, especially like my mother or my siblings who I do talk to. I've yelled at them and cussed them out for no reason. And they don't understand why. But then again, I come from a very Eastern Kentucky background, and it took them a long time to realize that mental illness is actually an existing factor of people's lives. And that's no fault of them. That is just a generational thing, and people are raised how their parents were raised, and the cycle continues. And it takes a long time for you to educate yourself on what mental illness is and other aspects of the universe. And it takes you a long time to educate yourself on anything, really, but mental illness is one of those big things. But yes, but my bad days now are not what they used to be. Like, I don't want to go out and drink and party and everything else. Like, and I mean, I've joked to my wife about it. Like, hey, do you want to throw a party? The kids go to bed. Like, let's have some drinks. Like, and that's about as most. I do still have a very impulsive shopping thing that I do, but me and Abby kind of had a system where she's like, if you want something, it has to be less than $100. And that kind of scratches the itch in a sense. Or she says, you can save for it and we'll save for that thing. And then by the time generally I've saved for it, I'm like, I don't even want it. But that helps. It really helps having someone who is as frugal as she is to tell me, like, you don't need it. Or if you do want it, get it on sale. But that's one thing. But again, bad days happen. I still, I have horrible nightmares, and Abby knows it because I've almost punched her. And it's going to be for the rest of your life. Like, if you have mental illness, I mean, it doesn't go away. So you have to learn how to control it. Don't let it control you. What else? Anybody else?
If we don't have anyone, I have a few questions that some of the people who registered asked. You have actually answered a few of them. One was, what are your plans after graduation? You already talked about you plan to go to grad school and then possibly get your doctorate,
Yes.
which the way you say it, and because I do know you, I think that's a yes.
Yeah.
And then how did your diagnosis affect your life? You've talked about that. Another question someone had, as what is something that you would like those who do not have bipolar to understand about you, and how can they best serve you if a crisis were to arise?
Play like I've actually I am a I'm gonna just this kind of goes I'm gonna like connect all this, but I'm a white man, but I'm a white man covered in tattoos head to toe. The first thing you will see about me is I have a tattoo on my chest that sometimes people can see. I have tattoos all over my arms and my fingers. I have been judged for the color on my skin. I have been judged for the off the wall things that I have said and done. And I would just like people to get to know me and understand that sometimes I have to wear a mask of sanity, as I like to call it, because I am trying to conduct a professional conversation or an intelligent conversation with you. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I wonder if I can jump off the roof and survive. Like, I'm going, like, there are many different thoughts that run through my head at any given time, especially now that I don't have medication. Like, I wish I could explain it to you that if any of you have children, imagine you're talking to all of your children at once and you can actually carry on the conversation intelligently. I'm thinking of all those things at once in my head while I'm talking to you. If that even makes sense in that regard. I would just like people to be more understanding about it because there have been times that there has actually been one time. Teresa knows I texted her. I ran away from work because I thought that I was going to jail. And I ran away to the VA because somebody looked at me weird. That's exactly what happened. I had a coworker just gave me a funny look, like, and all I asked was, "Hey man, could you watch the desk? I'm gonna go use the bathroom." Gave me a funny look, and I was like, "I'm gonna go to jail. He doesn't like me. I'm not kidding." And I was like, "I'm not feeling well. I need to go. I'm just gonna leave. I think I'm sick." And I drove as fast as I could to the VA, and I was like, "I don't know what's wrong." And it was funny. Like I was laughing about it the next day, but then it was one of those moments like, are they going to send me to jail? Like, do they not like me? What did I do? Is it because I say crude things? I'm sorry. And Teresa was like, I get it. Like, it's okay. And that's all I've ever wanted was just people to be like, I mean, yeah, you can't say that, but it's nothing to go to jail over.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and that stuff happens. If any of you have like delusions like that, I wish it made sense. And I wish I could like describe it to you, but it's like, imagine if somebody told you the sky was red and you truly believed it with all your being. Even though you see it's blue, you swear it's red and nobody will ever convince you otherwise. And when those moments happen, you got to let me work through it because it takes me a minute because those things, and that's probably the scariest part is having a very logical mind. Many people do, especially those in academia, I would think, have to be a very logical thinking person, especially to do the psychotherapy field. Have your mind lie to you and tell you that something that exists that doesn't. It's scary because you truly think it exists and it does not. And I know that I wish I could make it make sense. There is actually a video. I do not recommend it if you were triggered easily, especially if you have your own mental illnesses. There is a video on YouTube. I may be able to give it to Teresa, who can link it to everybody. And I've listened to it. It was definitely crazy. It's for those with schizophrenia. And you're supposed to wear it with headphones. And you are in a point of view of someone who has schizophrenia and who has not been on their medication as of recently. And it's what they would do with hearing voices, seeing things that aren't there. And you are supposed to watch it. Complete darkness, just have your headphones on and watch it. And I'm telling you, that is probably the most realistic thing I can think of as what a delusion would be. or what a hallucination could be. And it is, I've had people watch it before and it was terrifying for them. And again, I don't have schizophrenia, but I have had delusions and hallucinations, and they are that real.
I have one last question. How can we best advocate for you and others who also have a diagnosis of bipolar? It's kind of what you just said, but this was worded a different way. So
Say that one more time.
how can we best advocate for you and others who also have diagnosis of bipolar?
And I really, I don't know. I think it's more or less just being very understanding, because I mean, mental illness is a very new thing. I mean, the DSM is just now in its 5th iteration, and it changes and is updated very. It's not that often. I mean, but it has been updated.
No, it's not often.
Yeah, it's not often, but
Mhm.
it's a soft science. It's still a lot of unknowns. And I think that's just what people need to be, is understanding, and maybe, and you can see if someone, I mean, it's been pointed out to me by Joy, like, are you a little manic? Because I was just itching in my seat, like just rocking back and forth. You can tell a difference in someone's mood changes, especially if you have a student and you've had them for many semesters. Like with Joy and Dr. Abraham, they're the only social work professors for the bachelor's level. So they've had me for almost 6 semesters, I think. So they've gotten to know me quite well. And again, I mean, you can't be as vigilant as that. Like, you got to also have to teach a class and live your own life. You can't just look at every individual student and assess them. But there might be some triggers, like, do they have dark circles under their eyes? Is their eyes pinpoints? Are they rocking back and forth in their seat? Are they whispering things to themselves? Are they shaking their leg? Or are they digging in their nails just to have something to do? Are they sleeping in class more often than not? Do they look like their eyes are swollen because they've cried recently? It's just random things, like go over, hey, how are you? And again, they might not say anything, but at least you tried to say, hey, how are you? And maybe you can make a mental note of it. And if the university has a counselor on hand or something, maybe they could reach out and say, hey, it was just noticed that you might be struggling or may potentially be in crisis. Would you like to talk to someone? Could I talk to you? Do you need somebody to listen to you? I mean, I think that's the best thing that you could do for someone, is just to let them know, how are you? Are you okay? Because a lot of people will just be quick to say, well, oh, well, they're a disruption, or Jesus Christ, this guy cries all the time, or this girl cries all the time, like they're a drama queen. Or like, oh, that's the weird kid digging their nails out. I mean, I think that's just, look at the behavior as maybe there's something going on and it's just not, it could be nothing, but it might be something. And it's going to take you more than like 2 weeks, but I mean, you'll kind of get your students' behavior down by the end of the semester, I would feel like. I don't know, I'm not a professor, but I've just had many classes with different students, and I've kind of noticed different behaviors over time. But I think it's just because I stare at everybody and I'm a people watcher.
I have a question, Hunter. Do you think that your like road into the therapy and diving so much into it has helped you be able to administer therapy and talking to people? Is it made it harder?
Yes, I think if you want to be anything in a psychological field, social work, anything like that, you also have to have a messed up brain, because you have lived it, and you can talk to people and advocate with them and really talk to them and understand. You can be understanding. Like, I've been there. It's definitely helped me, because I knew whenever I got out of the military, I wanted to work with veterans or other people in crisis. It could have been veterans. It could be correctional in the prison system, or it could just be other people just in crisis in general. I just knew that I wanted to do acute therapy for people in crisis. And at first, I've changed my degrees. I think it's been about 5 or 6 times. I've changed my degree about 5 or 6 times. And it took me a minute. I think it was Teresa. Teresa handed me a pamphlet and said, you know what social work is? And I said, and I, like everybody, oh, well, social workers just take your babies and give you food stamps. Everybody in Eastern Kentucky believes that. And she handed me a thick packet and said, this is all the jobs you can do if you get bored with social work. And I was like, that's a lot of jobs. And it's true. There was so many different ways to help people. And I think that's what I wanted to do with social work. And it's definitely helped me talk to people more, especially like I'm in Mountain Comprehensive Care in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, and it is a crisis unit. And it's so interesting to me whenever people come to me like, people just don't understand, man, that I don't mean to be angry. I'm like, I've been there, man. Let me tell you my story. Let me tell you some things about me. And just to sit and talk with them. And again, like a lot of people in those facilities want to talk to people who are like them. Like I have tattoos, and that's a good conversation starter. Like, oh, hey, man, you have tattoos? Like, yeah. And it opens up dialogue that they might not talk to someone who's in a suit and tie. Again, I like wearing a suit, but I'll make a notice sometimes if I see someone, I might show some tattoos just to see if they'll talk to me. And it works half the time. It's nice to do. I wish that there was a way, I kind of feel bad. I'm happy that social work is more predominantly dominated by women, just because there's a lot of women in crisis that don't want to talk to men, and I kind of feel bad that some women do talk to me, but I know that others do not. And I feel bad that I can't be there for them in that sense because they feel scared. And it's understandably so, and I put no blame on them. I just wish there was a way that I could approach them and I could learn. And I'm sure I'll learn that over time with experience, but I hope there's a way that I can learn to approach certain women who have been abused, or in other regards that they might feel comfortable talking to me. Because I could see myself like, I think I'm a teddy bear. I have a cupcake tattooed on my arm from Alice in Wonderland, but other women might feel as though that I'm scary because I walk with a military walk generally. I walk with a purpose, as they say. I am bald. I have a beard, and I'm covered in tattoos. I probably look like I've been in jail 50 times. So, sadly enough.
We did have one more question. I think you really kind of answered this one too, but it was, do you or have you had a difficult relationship with your parents in a way of getting them to understand what your needs are? And if so, how have you been able to help them understand how to best serve your needs?
I
think you've pretty much answered it, but I want to make sure.
I will say this. I love my mother, but there have been times where my mother has said, you're just trying to swindle the government. And I love her, but she is of a different generation when mental health did not exist, even though she herself, I've already diagnosed her. Believe me, I've already diagnosed her. And I love my mother. I love her to death. But she means well, and she has learned. It's taken her a bit, but she definitely understands now because she's seen me at my worst. And she may not understand it completely, but she knows that I do have moments where I'm not myself, and she really tries. And that's the thing. When she said that, that was in the very beginning, and it took a long time for me to talk to her. And she's been more open to learning things, and I'm very glad for that. She's my biggest advocate, and she's my best friend. I love her to death. And I think that's why me and my mom can stay close, is because she's willing to talk to me and learn what it means like to be bipolar. Now, because she still has moments where like, not even just her, it's like my entire family. They'll even think that PTSD is only for veterans, but it is not. PTSD is a survivor's illness, and it can happen from anything. But they are slowly learning. But again, a lot of my family is from the holler, and I'm sure many of you understand what that means. And they are trying, especially for me. And I hope that one day they achieve the enlightenments, but this is progress, and progress is the most I could ask for. Is like, hey, I'm kind of crying today, and I just don't feel very good. I just don't want to talk today. And they're like, oh, okay. Instead of like, why are you crying? Just be happy. Oh.
Robert?
All right. Great job. Thank you, Hunter. That was awesome. So, yes, kudos.
Thank you.
Teresa, this is re-recorded and will be put on the website, correct?
Yes, Tina has it recording and she'll get the recording to us and we will include it with the other speaker sessions.
And then what we'll also do, we'll at the end of the session, we will have resources that are available in the community for those who may need a referral or some available resources. So, Hunter, thank you again for sharing your story. It's not always easy, but when we share our stories, we break down barriers, and this is one.
Thank you guys for having me.
So, thank you all for joining us. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.